Hello and welcome to our fireside chat, Implementing Pay TV in the Era of the Cloud, a case study. So we're going to discuss today the ins and outs of implementing a full service IP over-the-top IPTV platform with managed, unmanaged and mobile devices across multiple territories. So a real complex thing. So right scaling is key. My name is Andy Waltenspiel and I'm your host today. So we'll have today with me, there's Patrick Ferguson, Head of User Experience Tech Sales at TiVo. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Great to be here with you. So dear audience, for you, Patrick has been over 10 years in product strategy at both operator and middleware vendor side. So he lived and breathed IP video for several years at TDS, one of the top 10 US local exchange carriers. 1 to 2 million subs, 30 states, 900 communities. Here's a complex beast.
Yes.
So, Patrick, you know what you're talking about. Great to be here with you.
Thank you again for having me. Happy to be here.
Very cool. So let's start maybe with what is the problem multinational or multi-location telco operators are facing these days?
Well, I think really what it boils down to is not just operationally what the operators are looking at and dealing with in terms of maintaining their existing video product portfolio from the end user perspective onto the back office, but really it's that compared to what the market is demanding. I mean, consumers they're yearning for help in navigating the content chaos that's happening out there. There are more devices. They have more flexibility on what they watch and from where they watch it from a content sourcing standpoint. There are more features that are getting their attention and getting them excited about video that begin to stretch the demand outside of what we would typically define as pay TV, both in the QAM and IPTV sense from a traditional pay TV perspective. And there's more content. So it's an overwhelming scenario for an end user, for a customer to understand all of this content in the universe that's out there now and how that is how they have access to it, and their demand for wanting to have access to it on whatever device they want, whenever they want, wherever in the home that they want it is becoming a key issue for operators. So, it's at the same time though, you have these operators that are the vast majority of pay TV executives believe that they have to innovate strongly over the next 5 years in order to adapt to that. And there's a major OTT disruption happening for pay TV companies. As we all know, the cost of operating a platform in and of itself, let alone across multiple regions, as we're talking about today, is incredibly intensive, both operationally, capitally, to upgrade. And it's something that as you look at what that compares to now versus the future state that needs to happen, that many believe needs to happen in order to be able to adhere to the change in market dynamics, it can be overwhelming.
So there's, of course, the big buzzword of the super aggregator. Everyone is trying to do that. You have your own services, you have live, but you can't live without YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, Disney. Well, difficult to integrate all of them. Let's leave aside that I need content rights and make deals with them. But what does it need to be a super aggregator? What are the key building blocks you need to put together?
Well, there's an endless array of sources that these customers have to choose from. And what we're seeing across multiple regions of the world is that, quite honestly, the customers are showing signs of content fatigue. Even though they want access to all of that content, what they really want, the vast majority when polled, really want is a single source for all of that to come in. So how do you advance your platform and look at ways to not necessarily or no longer even treat OTT as a competitive threat, but embrace what that could mean in terms of the value that you provide as a pay TV operator into the experience by, as you had stated, Andy, super aggregation of that content into an experience, showing that even if inevitably these customers are going to want to watch OTT content, but if you provide them that avenue, that access within your own user experience, then you're setting yourself apart from the rest of the competition. There's no question about it.
Now let's look at the building blocks. What are the things I need to put together to make an engaging user experience? What do I need?
For as fragmented as the universe of content is right now, we do know that customers prefer to have a single source for all that content, or would prefer to have it, even if they don't know that they would at this point, just because of how complex the discovery process can be. But that leads me into the next piece, is that robust discovery engine, personalized content discovery that brings in search and recommendations that make the user feel as though it's personalized for them. The experience is personalized for them. When they turn on whatever device that it is, no matter what time of day it is, having a high confidence rate that when they turn that on, there's going to be content displayed in the main UI UX of the video platform that shows them what it is they're going to want to watch across multiple different categories, depending on how they viewed on the platform in the past. That's a very big piece. And I know that for operators, the key factors, as we've mentioned before as well, is related to the cost of the platform and how that spreads across the entire portfolio of products, not just with video, but across higher margin broadband, mobile, and voice products. Being able to advance into the IPTV world allows for operators to reclaim valuable broadcast spectrum that they have that can clog up a QAM or DOCSIS-based video network. That's really a key piece for the cable companies that are out there right now. And it's with that, then you leverage your investment that you put into your broadband infrastructure into IP or over-the-top based video that allows for you to be more flexible and allows for you to increase speeds for those DOCSIS-based customers. Those are really important pieces as you look at what your current product is bringing from a value perspective. Again, not just from the end user, but operationally, expense-wise, what that all looks like in a current state versus what it really needs to look like to have video continue to be a sustainable product offering and to continue to be a key contributor to overall customer lifetime value.
Okay. So I saw a nice white paper from you that was talking about six signposts of things you need to think about when you want to go down this route.
Yes. Yeah. And this is something that, I think a very important analysis, and believe it's a very important analysis for operators to take a very strong look in the mirror and determine, from 6 really crucial points in their business. What does overall customer lifetime value look like with your current product portfolio? How does video contribute to the customer bundle, the elongated nature of the customer bundle, expected lifetime of that customer, but then also from a net profit perspective, what does your current customer acquisition scenario look like versus what it would look like in a cloud-based model where those customer acquisition costs are greatly reduced? It really can swing an entire business case from looking to invest into a current platform versus looking to what can feel like a daunting task of investing into cloud-based. But really, when you look at a business case over a stretch of time, because a lot having to do with the customer acquisition cost scenario, those business cases are much more fruitful in the cloud-based world. And also another key piece, so the first one being customer lifetime value and what it looks like now versus what it would look like in an investment type scenario. Second one are content costs. I mean, there's no secret that operators around the globe struggle with the rise in content costs, and yet they need to have that content sourced and or aggregated into their experience because it's what people are demanding. I mean, we said still the vast majority of customers out there are pay TV subscribers. And even though there's a ton of interest in the new technology and the new devices and the new over-the-top world, they really do still want, the majority of them want to have that pay TV experience. So that content is valuable still, but for an operator, it's problematic. So what does your current state of content and your portfolio look like versus maybe a different model in the cloud-based world? When you're looking at an OTT skinny down type model, how does that positively or negatively impact your content cost scenario? And then all of that contributing to video gross margin in and of itself, right? We talked about customer lifetime value, which is everything all in for the total bundle. But for video, that gross margin is eroding for a lot of operators based on content costs alone. And how do you reposition yourself, or how do you look at yourself, I should say, in your current state model versus future going forward? I think, so the first 3 being customer lifetime value, content costs, gross margin. Fourth is video adoption behavior and customer metrics. a lot of what we've talked about so far here today, Andy, is what the market is demanding and how that's changing what consumers want to see and from which devices they want to consume the video from. Understanding if you're competitive and will remain competitive in your current scenario, or what it will cost to get you to be competitive versus an investment type scenario, and how those levers play in justification models for you to be able to look at a higher investment, or long-term investment, I should say, into a cloud-based platform. Because that then plays into our fifth, which is industry evolution and trends. We're seeing things shift toward the IP world. We're seeing things shift toward over-the-top based content, even in a linear type format. And what we would consider traditional pay TV is now being broadened as a definition to be encompassing of over the top, and allowing operators to begin looking at app-based delivery of their linear and video on demand content. So how do you look now in being able to combat and stay at parity, or be a leader in those trends now versus in a cloud-based model? And the sixth is just that. So then all of those things put together, what does your platform evolution strategy look like? How cost intensive is it for you to continue to maintain and or further your existing video platform, both from an end user perspective, in the experience, the features, the equipment, and then all the way through to your network and how that supports it? As we had talked about the DOCSIS versus IP world. And then in the back end, what does your back end look like? How many components are in there that you're managing, and how intensive is that for you operationally in your current world versus having more of an aggregated experience moving forward, and relieving yourself of some of those burdens operationally?
Wow. So I must say you sound much more like a consultant now than a middleware vendor. And I think that's what you need as a big telco. You need somebody to challenge you and show you these business metrics instead of talking about bits and bytes and left and green.
Well, it's important. I mean, it really is important, because yes, of course, TiVo and Xperi are, we're certainly out there pushing our products and believe that we have an industry leading experience to talk with people about. However, coming from my experience and being in the operator world for so long, I understand what some of those challenges are. The flash bang whiz of those sales presentations are wonderful, but unless you know exactly which levers to pull from a business case modeling perspective, then it's going to be nearly impossible for you to be able to further the conversation. There has to be real dollars involved. There has to be real strategy involved. There has to be real gain from an overall operational perspective in order to do that.
It makes a lot of sense. The point you raised about the customer lifetime value, that was an interesting, almost a revelation. Say, don't look just at video on itself. Look at the spillover effects, and what does it mean on mobile? What does it mean on broadband? How do you bundle all that together to make it a winning proposition?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's important, because if you just silo out video in and of itself, with the trends and how content costs are moving, with the trends and what it takes to actually keep up with the back-end video platforms, the CDNs and the origins, and or the overall equipment that you're housing on premise, furthering those in order to be able to adapt to the market trends and customer demand. And then also from an equipment perspective, all of that can make video on its own feel very crunched in terms of what it's contributing by itself from a profit and not just gross, but a net profit perspective when you factor all the expenses into it. But what statistics show is that customers who have video as a part of a bundle stay with that particular operator 2.5 times longer than those that are broadband only, or that do not have video a part of the bundle. So of course, as it pertains to video being a savior for the overall product portfolio's profit contribution to the business, it's a contributor, but it's not the savior. But what it shows us is that having video and having that bundled customer and a video product that meets the expectations or exceeds the expectations of the market allows for an elongated look at how the overall profit of that bundle, including the higher margin broadband and mobile and or voice products, how that contributes to the overall customer lifetime value, not just video in and of itself.
So we talked about the signposts, we talked about success factors. All this sounds very, very good logic. Now, why do I need to do this in the cloud?
The downside of investing into your existing portfolio is that the platform upgrade costs, including servers, CDN, CPE, multi-screen viewing to be able to branch out into multiple rooms and devices in the home, All of that will have a fiscally unhealthy cadence to keep up with industry trends. It is what it is. Unless you're on a cloud-based platform that is introducing a cadence of software releases, and with that major feature releases over the course of time, and you're responsible for that, then inevitably it's going to be the modeling doesn't work to where that's sustainable long term, particularly again with what the industry is demanding and the customers are demanding from a viewing option and behavioral perspective. The fact of the matter is also that there is a decline in what we define as traditional pay TV adoption. And that is accelerating in multiple different parts of the world. In certain areas, it is definitely holding on and leveling out. But we've seen that trend kind of cascade throughout multiple different regions of the world. And it's very real. The data is very real.
Speed and time to market is definitely one of the weapons operators have. Yeah. It is also one of the key points for Android TV to go for a Google solution. And I think we'll get there. You have a few customer examples that you can maybe talk about, and what are some of the key learnings of those or success stories you can tell?
Sure. Really, some of the big elements to it are, of course, cloud-based goes without saying because of the agility, the time to market, the diversification of application-based environment across devices, right? That's a huge component to it, as you've mentioned, and as we've discussed. But the other scenarios are when you look at a huge piece to what differentiates the traditional pay TV environment as we know it now across both QAM and on-premise IPTV versus the cloud-based environment where Android TV and then across Apple, the iOS and application-based as a whole environment is driving the strategy, is that the customer acquisition cost scenario in one versus the other isn't even comparable. And once you begin to relieve yourself of how intensive it is to purchase equipment, install the services at the customer's home in the existing scenario versus what it looks like when you're purchasing even in the managed arena of Android TV set-top boxes and the operator tier version of that, it's significantly less expensive, a third of the cost for a home deployment. And you put yourself in a position where self-install, especially in this time of, in this day and age and with the pandemic happening, self-installation is a huge piece to that. And if you cut those scenarios, then all of a sudden the doors will open wide for your in terms of what your business case looks like in one versus the other. And that also, along with that, the back end is a huge component to it. Establishing the right back end that in and of itself is software based, that is agile to be able to adhere to scaling across multiple regions of the world, across multiple devices and up to millions and millions of subscribers if you're so lucky. Having a back end that is built to be able to move with that will prevent you from having to repeatedly invest capitally into upgrading the infrastructure is a huge difference between the invest in your current versus invest in the cloud video components. Okay.
So looking at the time, I think we covered quite a lot. The 6 signposts is something you need to discuss internally. I like what you just said. You're not talking about middleware component. You're not talking about fantastic search and discover, which all you have in the Xperi portfolio. You're talking about let's position a conversation. I like that one. Yeah. It's really the think holistically, think business, and then we'll solve the technology challenges.
Yeah, and then with that, once we get into that position, we're very confident that the Xperi TiVo portfolio meets the needs. We're excited about what we're bringing to the market, and we're excited about what our customers have experienced up to this point, and certainly checks all the boxes.
Well, I think we checked many boxes today. Patrick, it was a pleasure to discuss with you. Thank you very much. And I guess people will find you would they want to know more.
Thank you very much, Andy. Appreciate you
Thanks for being with me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And bye, everyone.